Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater.
Does it seem that long ago? Does it seem that long ago when we had a legislative session here in New Mexico? Not really, because even since we had the regular session, there's been a special session. So even though this summer we're discussing New Mexico businesses, how we are recovering after this COVID nightmare, and how are they faring after legislation that was passed during the 2021 legislative session. We'll have an expert in businesses. It's the president and founder of the New Mexico Business Coalition, Carla Sonntag, with me. And even though the sessions seem like they are in the back rear view mirror, we know there's another one coming up. So she's going to share her insight of how all these rules, laws, regulations are putting a damper on businesses here in our state. So please stay with us when we talk to Carla Sonntag right after this. Some call my guest a treasure. Some say she's indispensable when it comes to helping, guiding, supporting, and fighting for New Mexico businesses. I have the president and founder of New Mexico Business Coalition, Carla Sonntag, with me today. The fighter, the savior, the champion. And you're still smiling.
Yes. Well, you know, we just decided that we're going to have eternal hope that things will get better. And you know, Diane, sometimes things have to hit rock bottom before you start finding your way back to the top. And we're about there. As a state, we're about there.
Aren't we about there, really?
We have a lot of legislators that seem to think that business people have just bottomless pockets full of cash, when the truth of the matter is we have a lot of business owners that sometimes don't get a paycheck because they don't have enough money to pay themselves. After they cover business expenses and take care of their employees, I know a lot of business owners that have gone without pay, some for a year during the pandemic.
And why are they business owners here in New Mexico? Why in the world would someone open a business in this state with the heavy hand of government, with the regulations? What's their spirit like?
They have an entrepreneurial spirit that cannot be dampened. Now, unfortunately, we have had some business owners say, yeah, this is not the environment I want to be in, and they have packed it up and left the state. But we have some diehards that are here through thick and thin. People like native New Mexicans. I'm a native New Mexican. I see the draw. I have the passion. I love this state, and I want to be here, and I want to believe we can do better. I know we can do better, but we've got to start looking at our leadership. We've got some people that are making some really poor decisions for business.
And when it happens, it's kind of a lifelong thing, because why would a business want to, especially after our closures, the uncertainty of it all, why would they want to move into our state and invest in our state when we're not sure if a governor will decide, nope, we're going to close you down again. Nope, we don't like what you're doing. We don't like your kind of business. We're going to tax you. We're going to regulate you.
Right. And you know, the majority of the businesses that we see moving into the state are those that are getting huge subsidies from the state. LEDA funding and JTIP funding and infrastructure funding. And here's the sad thing, because this has been going on for years, probably 10 years that I've been watching it. I call this the bribery money. So they bribe a company to come in, they set up shop, and they hire some employees, and they do whatever. But when the money runs out, they're gone. When the money's gone, they're gone. And we had businesses down in Las Cruces, for example, a call center, 450 employees. They were hiring one day, closed the next. And, you know, it was when Las Cruces minimum wage went up again. They said, we're done. And they left. And then we had 450, and this was about a year ago, we had 450 more people unemployed who thought they had a job, but it was only as good as the money was there, policies change. They don't have to stay. They can go to a better state that has better policies.
That's happened to the city as well. I mean, you give them these incentives, and they're just here for the incentive, and we really don't get a payback on the money or a return on those incentives. So they walked out with millions of dollars worth of incentives, and we did not receive it back in jobs for New Mexicans.
Right, we've been pushing for years, if you're going to invest in a New Mexico business, invest in one that's already here. They know how hard it is to operate, and they're here by choice. Invest in them, help them grow, help them hire new employees and expand their operation.
How would you characterize this past legislative session, and what do you look forward to regarding businesses here in the state?
It was brutal.
Oh,
It was,
and you told me you're hopeful. You're eternally hopeful, and thank you for being frank and honest. It was brutal. Jeez. I thought it was, but you were hopeful, so I thought, how can it be brutal and hopeful?
well, I mean, we did stop some bad legislation. The cabinet secretary, before he left, McCamley, introduced a bill that would raise unemployment insurance rates when we're already fighting increases. We got that stopped.
Let's talk about the good news. What else did you, anything else? That's
Well,
good.
there was a huge tax bill that would have increased taxes, mostly focusing on businesses, but it would have, so they focused on high earners. The problem is the majority of our businesses in the state are subchapter S and other forms that have passed through for taxes, right? Whatever they earn in the business, they pay at their personal rate. So they're not rich people, but they may have a lot of revenue that has passed through from their business. That would have been a really big detriment to business. We got all those tax increases stripped out of that bill.
Congratulations.
It was hard, and I'll tell you what, there are some times we have other business people stand up, business group leaders, and say, yeah, we should do this. And I'm just like, how are you helping business when you say it's okay to increase a tax on them? So our hope lies in the fact that some of that stopped. It was still brutal because we didn't do enough to address the problems, the systemic problems that we have with business. It's difficult to operate here. We need to address that, make it easier. We need to address our tax code. We're not doing that. We're doing it piecemeal.
And what makes it difficult for businesses to operate here? I mean, I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you, the expert.
The regulation is horrendous. The paperwork and the hoops they have to jump through to open a business, expand a business, to modify a business, or their building, their property. You really get to the thought that you don't own anything here with the government control over how you use what you think you own and what you're operating. And that doesn't have to be that way.
Isn't that amazing for Americans to, actually the idea is that they own a business, they start a business, you think they own it, but then government tells them exactly what to do. So it sounds like the easy solution is everybody work for government. Everybody work for government.
Yes.
Be told what to do.
It's incredible because of the minimum wages. You know what? This pandemic and the hiring is proving the point that we made years ago. Free market works. We're seeing wages go up because employers are having to pay more to get people to work. You don't need the government mandating that. And then we passed the Healthy Workplace Act.
And that was HB 20, Healthy Workplace Act, which has a happy name.
Yeah.
Healthy Workplace. Who can oppose a happy workplace?
Yes. Happy name, bad for business. This is the worst law of its kind that has been passed in the United States.
Oh,
Yes.
of course,
Employees.
here in New Mexico. Really?
Yeah, many states allow up to 40 hours paid leave. Ours is 64, so quite a bit more. There is no exception.
Tell us what this act does.
So
It addresses paid leave.
paid, yes, and it's not just sick leave. It can be for a family member, it can be for court hearings, mental health. I mean, there's a multitude of things that it can be used for.
Well, when I first started working, I thought, and that was quite a few decades ago, last millennium, I thought for the most part, and I don't know if it was required by government, but I got a week paid leave a year.
Right.
Okay, so what you're talking about 64 hours, that doesn't, what are we talking about here?
So they earn 1 hour for every 30 hours that they work of paid leave. Yeah, it's supposed to be used for sick leave, but it's for them or their family or anybody else that they bring into their realm. They don't have to give the employer notice of using it. They can just call in, not be there. They don't have to help arrange for somebody to cover their shift. It really puts the business owner in a bind, but the nightmare that it creates for keeping track of the hours, there's no exception for a temporary employee, a seasonal employee. So you have somebody that's they're only gonna be there for a month. You have to accumulate that leave for them. And they can take it, but if they come back within a year, they're eligible for the leave that they earned and they can use it immediately. And they've got to keep track of this for 4 years, employers. It just goes on and on and on. And as I said, no exception for a small employer. So you have 2 employees and now you're accumulating this leave. They call in sick or whatever. What do you do?
So you can use it for whatever you want?
There are some limits.
And how many hours is it, 64?
Up to 64 hours per year. It's prorated on the number of hours.
But if it's
you work.
about 30 a week, we have 52 weeks, so I imagine it's about 52 hours a year.
Well, it's 1 hour for every 30 hours worked. So you earn an hour before you complete 1 week of work. So it accumulates up to 64 hours in a year. And it goes from year to year, but an employer doesn't have to allow more than 64 hours use in a year.
But they accumulate it.
Yes.
And when they leave the job, are they paid those hours?
No, not right now. It's not.
But if people hear this, they're going to start taking it.
Yes.
So,
if you're sick, I mean, we have a policy. We don't want employees coming sick, and we want to take care of our employees. Most employers do. But there needs to be some consideration for those really small employers that only have 1 or 2 employees. They usually don't have the wherewithal to cover the shift, to cover the pay. It's really going to be hard.
has this taken effect yet, or in June?
July 1st of next year.
Okay.
So we, being the eternal optimists, are going to go back in the next legislative session and say, can we reconsider this? Could it be 40 hours a year? Can you give consideration for that temporary employee that is not going to stay employed?
You're concerned about some other legislation, and as we discussed during the special session, they changed the name of it, but I call it legalization of marijuana legalization, but they have some fancier names to hide what it is, saying it's cannabis, recreational cannabis legalization, which passed the state.
Yes.
Do businesses have some concern, other than those who want to go into the marijuana selling business, other businesses concerned about their employees?
Oh my gosh.
Tell me what's going on with businesses regarding this.
You know, and we don't have to make up what the problems are. We can look at all the states that have already done this. It's not good. It's not good for society. Children have access. You can pass all the rules that you want, that kids aren't going to be able to get it. But when it's that readily available on every street corner, they're going to get it. Then what do you do with the employees? They say we can have a drug-free workforce. Well, how do you do that when that's legal and they can use it on the weekend? You test them on Monday, they're still going to be positive, right? We don't have that perfect testing to know when they used it. It's not like alcohol that will dissipate in your system overnight and you're going to be better by Monday. Not necessarily. It's still in your system. It's still going to be registered. So how does an employer test for that? And then if they use it at lunch one day, yeah, it's in the system, but how do you know? You've got people that are drivers for companies, operating heavy equipment. They can tell us we can do a clean workforce, But how does that look? And they can't answer that question. The other thing is that we've seen in other states, crime rate goes up. Can you just imagine the crime rate going up in this state?
Even more? Even more in Albuquerque?
It does not resolve the issue with cartels. As a matter of fact, they are emboldened by it because now they can grow it, sell it, because it's being sold everywhere.
So what are businesses saying to the New Mexico Business Coalition? What are they saying to you?
They don't like it. And, you know, we held it at bay for a long time. There are some people that are saying, well, this will help solve the financial problems of the state. Well, part of the law allows any individual to grow up to 6 plants. So if everybody's growing their own, I don't know how much of a market they're going to have. And I don't know how many people will grow their own. I don't know how many users we're going to have. But I don't believe, from what I've seen in other states, that they'll make as much revenue as they believe they will. And then when they start looking at drug addiction, child use, increased crime, and the problem we're going to have on our roads.
Impaired drivers?
Yes.
That's a concern.
So that's going to
You said you wrote a 4-page analysis that you gave legislators concerning this.
We did. We analyzed what is going on in the other states, and we used all kinds of sources of information that were documented. We had links to everything that we put in that 4-page document, and we sent it to all the legislators and to the governor and said, please consider what your decision is here and the impact it's going to have. New Mexico is not this isolated state that isn't going to have the same issues every other state had. We're going to see it happen here. So it was better that they go in with their eyes wide open. They didn't comment, and then it was completely a split decision between the parties on how it was approved.
And how are businesses, once it's legalized, but when it's, I think it's going to be, what, next year?
Mm-hmm.
What are they supposed to do about testing if they have critical work to be done in their workplace and they need somebody to be substance-free, but it shows up? What are they supposed to say? Go home and I'll pay you a full day's work, but you cannot operate that machine because you tested positive? What are businesses supposed to do?
Yeah, and then they're going to have the Paid Healthy Workforce Act, so I guess they could have to pay employees. We're still waiting for that guidance. We're asking the state, what are you going to do? Because this was your brainchild, you're the one that passed it, you think this is a good idea. Tell us how business is supposed to handle that.
Or can businesses become creative and decide themselves, kind of come up with their own solution instead of requiring government to tell them what to do? What do you think?
Well, certainly they're already looking at policies, but we're still going to be subject to the rules that come out from government. So we're sitting here with a foot in each world, our world of doing what we need to do to get through, and the other foot knowing that government is going to be dictating some things to us that we're going to have to take a hard look at.
Your fight isn't over, Carla.
It never is.
I know the Business Coalition worked to oppose this constitutional amendment. I think it is that's going to go to voters, and of course how it's going to be worded will depend if people vote on it or not. But it's the permanent fund, rating more of the permanent fund. Of course, it's called permanent, but rating it more for early childhood programs.
Right. We have increased funding in education 300% over the last 10 years. We have seen no difference in the results. So now we're going to take money out of a fund that is supposed to be there in perpetuity to provide not only for education, it provides for some of our hospitals. And we're going to take that money, more than economists recommend, and invest in early childhood, which is great. But again, we have done it with no requirements, no accountability. And so we're going to continue to throw money at a system that is not working. Our kids are not getting the education they need. To us,
even though we've increased it 300%.
Yes. To us, it is time to start looking to those states that are successful, that have high graduation rates, high literacy rates. Find out how they're doing it and implement some of those standards and those best practices here.
In what I understand about this fund, by rating it more now, you might get a little bit more money now, but down the road, I'm not sure if it's 30, 40, 50 years, because you're taking the corpus out now and spending it now. Just within, maybe in
Yes.
our lifetime still, the money being returned will be less.
That's right. And that's why economists say you should not take more than 5% out. If you do that, the fund will continue to grow. We're taking out 5%. Now we're going to go over 6%. Again, with no accountability. And also realize most of the money going into that fund comes from the oil and gas industry. And we've got a bunch of legislators trying to shut that industry down. So you're taking too much out, and now you're going to start limiting what you put in. What do you think is going to happen to that fund in short time?
You just recently you were visiting Texas.
Yes.
Did you talk to the oil and gas industry there? I know a lot of the rigs from our border, from New Mexico, went over to Texas when things were clamped down here. Did you talk to them, and do they have any hope of coming back here?
They are going to go where they're allowed to operate. You know, they are accountable to their shareholders, and they're not going to stay here because the weather's usually nice. I mean, you know, we talk about our green chili and our weather, and they're both great. But then you've got to operate a business, and you've got to be held accountable to your shareholders, the people that are investing in your company. They want you making money. If you can't make money here, and you can move 50 miles away and make money, what are you going to do?
Did you talk to any of them?
Not this trip, but I keep in touch with them all the time.
And what are they saying?
Just that.
They're not coming back.
Well, they won't say they won't come back because they do own land here. But they have got to make money, and if they can do it over there, they're going to go do it over there.
Well, here's something else that you're excited about. The HB 122 that passed, healthy insurance premium surtax. So we all, most of us, pay for health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Government requires everybody now to have health insurance, and of course we pay for it.
Right.
And it seems like our deductibles are increasing and our charges that were paid are increasing. But now I hear there's a premium surtax on our premiums that we're paying.
Right. So while the state is pulling in billions of dollars from the federal government for stimulus funds for COVID, we have more money than we've ever had. We're going to raise taxes. And they think, well, we'll just go after the insurance companies and we'll increase the surtax that they're paying. Well, where do you think that's going to come from?
Me? Because
Yes.
I pay the premium.
And me and everybody else that's doing that, because the company is going to pass that on. So everybody's going to have a health insurance rate increase because of that.
And why do we need this increase in taxes?
The state is floundering. Instead of finding a better way to do business where people will flock to our state like they do Arizona, Colorado, and Texas. I mean, they're moving by droves into those states, out of our state in some cases. Instead of finding what makes that so attractive, they just want to take more money, take it from business.
You know, the 2020 census, which was completed, the numbers came out recently this spring, and it was alarming that all of our surrounding states increased substantially in population. So much so, some are getting extra Congress people to represent their states.
Yes.
Yet we grew New Mexico in the past decade 2%.
Yes.
And they grew, I can't remember, Colorado, maybe 6%, and Utah, Arizona, Texas. Everybody grew in population as a place to go.
Right.
And really, you don't go to a place unless there's jobs, because you can't support your family unless you have a job.
Right. And our growth was primarily seniors, and they're not working anyway. So that's great. I'm glad they're coming. If they're coming here and people are retiring here, that's all wonderful. But we still need to have producers, those people that are working and paying taxes.
And again, the businesses to come in here to support that just help spread around the taxes so we don't have to pay so many. We got
Exactly.
more businesses there, then we don't have to pay as much, supposedly. Regarding income tax and seniors and retirees and the military, I know there have been a lot of efforts on saying, let's not tax them their personal income, because they're not going to come here, and if they don't come here to retire, we won't have any income to receive anyway. So
Right.
the little tax we put on their income won't affect our state, because we would have gotten it in the first place if they don't come, and they're not coming.
Yes, that's exactly right. We need to stop taxing Social Security. And we could do more for our military by giving them a break on taxes as well. Because we've got 3 military bases and 2 labs here in the military bases. People retire, we'd like them to stay, but we're taxing their income.
And they don't choose to stay then. I'll always repeat Senator Bill Scher. I liked his solution best of all, because we are choosing people. Let's not tax the military. Let's not tax Social Security, the seniors. What about if we just did a 2% tax across the whole board and let everybody pay just 2%? I don't think too many people will oppose. Businesses, individuals, just a 2% rate. That's
Right.
doable. But
He had an option, and I'll tell you, we just came out, the ratings on rich states, poor states, we dropped 4 more spots to 38 on our economic outlook. We're lower than that in our economic performance, 42, and it's a lot to do with our tax structure. Broad flat tax works best. Utah has been #1 for 13 years running now, because they are on their pension plans, their employee practices, their business, and their taxes.
the good thing is they are our neighbor.
Yes.
Even though it might be a sliver in the four quarters. Carla Sonntag, thank you so much for ending on a cheerful note, and that is hopeful. Look to Utah, what they're doing.
Yes.
And maybe we can do it here and replicate it in New Mexico, and spread around these taxes fairly, not the government picking winners and losers, because it's not fair to industries and businesses that we tax you more, we give you an incentive, but you're not.
Exactly.
Okay.
We need
Thanks
to be
again.
fair.
We
Thank
need-
you.
Fairness is key.
Yes.
Carla Sonntag, thank you so much. The president and founder of the New Mexico Business Coalition. We appreciate all their work. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinnewater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.